least half, and mostly the female half of the audience, would have gone, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. Hold on here. What's really going on? So I had expressed skepticism about Wade Robson's story from almost the beginning, and then as I learned more, I was willing to go on Glenn Beck's show. Glenn Beck, who does a nationally syndicated radio and television show, and I've been on his program many times before.
John Ziegler, I think he's fantastic. What a interesting mind he has.
When he says interesting mind, he really basically means, boy, that Ziegler guy's not afraid to say anything. and I usually agree with him, but I won't say it because I actually have a very important gig to protect. And I mean that in a loving way, because when I did my appearance on Glenn Beck, he and The Blaze put out a headline. This is, I think, the exact headline. John Ziegler continues his quest to be the most unpopular man in America by taking on Leaving Neverland. I thought that, wow, that's kind of a cheap shot, but I get where it was coming from. And frankly, my wife would be the first person to agree with it. So, all right, fine. But what he meant by that was I was willing to say Wade Robson's not telling the truth. And that is before I went ahead and pursued an interview with Brandi Jackson. Because the moment I saw her in an old video online, I'm like, wow, okay, this lady is very intelligent, very credible. I believe what she's saying, and her story is incredibly important and vital to understanding whether any of this is true. So after a couple days of trying, she graciously agreed to have me come meet her and interview her. And I did that. We're speaking on doing this taping on Saturday. I did that on Friday, March 8th. I went to the Michael Jackson estate in Calabasas, not far from where I live. And we did an almost hour-long interview, no holds barred, no edits. Actually, there was one edit because I got a phone call. My phone stopped recording because we got a phone call in the middle of the interview, but that's the only edit that you're going to hear in this interview with Brandi Jackson, who for some reason, and you can decide for yourself why, was completely omitted from the Leaving Neverland alleged documentary. Brandi Jackson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Brandi, there's so many things I want to talk to you about, obviously so much going on. But for people who are not that familiar with the Jackson family tree, could you explain what your place is in that?
Absolutely. So my father is Jackie Jackson. He is the oldest brother of the Jackson 5, which makes him obviously brother to Michael. And I have one, I say I have one brother, but I've got three actually. I've got two younger brothers that are 5 years old as well. So yeah, that's my place.
So you're Michael Jackson's niece.
Correct.
And did you spend a lot of time with Michael?
Yes, I did. My entire childhood. And, in my teens, he began to be more out of the country, so it was a little less that he was here. But yeah, we spent a lot of time together.
And what did you make of your uncle?
He's the best. He's such a sweet, caring, and genuine person. Anybody that's met him can tell you this. There isn't anybody else like him. I have to be honest.
And now, are you saying that as a niece, or are you saying that? Would you be objective? Could you be objective about your uncle Michael Jackson?
Absolutely, yeah. No, yes, I'm saying that as a niece, but also just as somebody that's watched him interact with multiple different types of people, all different walks of people. I've seen how he treats them. He is just a very all-around, genuine, caring person, not just to family, but to anybody that he comes across.
And I think that there's a perception out there that all the members of the Jackson family are like living off of Michael's estate.
Yeah.
How accurate or inaccurate is that?
It's completely inaccurate. We all do our own thing. I have a job that I work regularly. I work with animals as well as I'm a photographer. My father and my uncles are still on the road. They've been performing for the last, I can't even say how many years. This is something that they've been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years. Nobody is living off of Michael or the estate, except for his children. That's their legacy. That's what they get. We don't live off of that.
And so not even your parents do?
No, not at all.
The other members of the Jackson 5? And
no.
So it's not even like residual that,
no.
that you guys somewhere down the road would benefit from Michael Jackson's estate?
Not at all.
And you're fine with that?
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So when you defend Michael or say something positive about him, it's what you believe, I assume, and it's also your motivation here is not money. What is it?
It's the truth. It's clearing my uncle's name and spreading the truth. He doesn't deserve to have these things happen to him. Like I said, he's a genuinely good person, and he needs people to stand up for him since he's not here to defend himself.
And to be clear about the circumstances surrounding this interview, I'm startled that you have not been out there in a very national public way. I know you've done a couple of smaller interviews before this, Neverland, Leaving Neverland, whatever you want to call it. I don't call it a documentary, but it's been called a documentary before that aired. So the point here is that you guys didn't come to me. I came to you and asked you to do this interview, and this is not part of some sort of overall plan or scheme by the Jackson estate, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. Like you said, you came to me, and I had been hoping to do several interviews, TV interviews, and coincidentally, as they approached, they got canceled. So a lot of interviews that I had been setting up were just getting canceled left and right. The radio interviews were sticking, so I would take those. Podcasts, they wouldn't cancel on me, I would take them. Anything I could do to spread the truth.
I didn't know this about the television, so can you give me an example of that?
I hate to put, different networks on blast. I hate to do that, but there was Good Morning America was one of them. An ABC interview was another one.
And when was that supposed to happen?
I believe it was the same week. It was either the week. It was the week that the documentary was airing on Sunday. It was the week prior.
And so they had asked you to come on.
Yes.
And was there an explanation for why it was canceled?
It was a very convoluted explanation. It had to do something with a night show picking up one show, and they took Wade's interview, and it was just a very convoluted explanation as to why they didn't want to take the interview any further. It made no sense to me. I can't even repeat it to you because it was that convoluted.
So you were getting a sense that this was not the straight explanation?
Absolutely. 100%.
You think that they just decided, for whatever reason, they were not going to tell your side of the story?
Yes. Yes.
And was this more than just ABC, or was
those were the two major ones,
right,
that really kind of hit me hard because I was really looking forward to speaking my piece. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason why it hit me so hard is because, for example, Oprah, Dan Reed and Oprah both ran with Wade and James's story without getting anybody else's side. So I felt like this was happening again when my interviews were being canceled. It was, again, nobody's getting my side of the story.
Well, and let's be clear why your side of the story is so integral here, because for those who may not know, there are two stars of Leaving Neverland. One is a guy by the name of Wade Robson, and I believe he's actually the star of the film. I mean, you could argue whether it's him or the other accuser, but he's given at least 2 hours in this 4-hour film to tell his side of the story unfettered. And the reason why you are important is not just because you're Michael Jackson's niece, but because you know Wade Robson in a very close and very unique relationship, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So Wade and I met in approximately 1991. We had done several things together. We did the LA Gear photo shoot with my Uncle Michael, as well as the black or white video. And after doing those, when you're on set, everybody's hanging out and getting to know each other. But after doing those 2 shoots, he had developed a crush on me and had asked my Uncle Michael if he would basically put us in a situation where we could get to know each other further. So my uncle invited Wade, his mom, and his sister, as well as me and my brother, to the ranch. So we spent about 5 to 7 days there just getting to know each other. Our relationship, we got closer in this time frame, and at the end of this trip, he asked me very kindly if I would be his girlfriend. It was just a very sweet thing. I want to say we were maybe about 12 years old at the oldest.
Were you the same age?
Yeah. Okay. Wade is 10 months younger than me.
Okay.
He was born in September of 82, and I'm February of 82.
Okay. And so then you're 9 years old in 1991
when we met.
Right, when you met.
Exactly.
Okay, and then so it was approximately 3 years later
at the most. Yeah, and it's so long ago now that I'm trying to really pinpoint these. But at the oldest, I was 12 years old
when you started quote unquote dating.
Exactly.
And you started dating because Wade had a crush on you. He asks Michael to basically set you up.
Yeah, basically.
And in that time period, you guys spend, you said, almost a week together
Right.
at the Neverland Ranch.
Correct.
And that's a long time. I mean,
It is, yeah.
I mean, especially for 12-year-olds, that's a.
Well, in the summer, your school is out, so you're able to do things like that.
Right.
That's why I was able to be there. Otherwise, my mom would have had me right back in school.
Okay.
But yeah, I was there for about a week.
All right. So, and of course, at the time, you never saw anything weird happening
Absolutely
between
not.
Wade and Michael.
No.
And of course, according to Wade's story, he's still in the midst of being brutally sexually abused at this point.
Absolutely. And being told to not like women, is my understanding. He was kind of being groomed.
Yeah, the women. He said in the documentary that Michael told him not to trust women.
Exactly.
And yet he's seeking out you.
Right.
And so at 12 years old, he asks you to be his girlfriend, and you say yes.
Right.
And so, can you give us a sense at that point of what that meant to be Wade's girlfriend?
It's like any other childhood relationship. You guys are mostly friends, like very close friends. We used to spend all the time together. We were always either on the phone if we weren't together, or we were at each other's house. This was a very age-appropriate relationship. We weren't having sex at 12 years old. This was just, holding hands, hugging, and going to the movies.
So kind of like puppy love.
Exactly. That's how this started.
All right. And do you remember approximately how long it took or what age you were when it became sexual?
Yeah, so, I feel comfortable sharing this, especially as an adult. But I did not have sex with Wade until I was just about 18 years old. That's the first time we actually had sex. It was something that was important to me to wait until a specific time. My mother passed away when I was 15, turning 16, and she had always recommended that I wait until I was the appropriate age. So that was something that kind of stuck with me, and he supported it. He was okay with that.
So you guys dated consistently for about 6 years before you had sexual intercourse.
Exactly.
And do you know whether or not you were his first? At least did he say anything to you about that?
He, at the time, I had assumed that this was his first time as well. Just because we were in this exclusive relationship and we were very close. Later, I learned that wasn't the case, that he had just recently started sleeping around. And it was one of those things, too, that before we had sex, I had questioned him several times. He had begun producing different artists like Mandy Moore, and I think this was around 1999. Mandy Moore, Brittany Spears, and some other artists prior to that, doing a lot of choreographing. And I had asked him, his behavior was changing. It didn't sit right with me. Are you sleeping with these women? And he's like, no, what are you talking? I would never do that. These are business relationships. These were always his.
And this is before you guys became sexual.
Exactly.
And you had suspicions. Do you remember what their suspicions were based on?
It's. I'm going to call it a woman's intuition. You can feel when something's changing with somebody that you're very close to. His just entire behavior was changing. When he would go to choreograph certain jobs, he would try to be more secretive about them. Didn't want to tell me exactly who was there and when he was coming back. It was just very weird, and it just doesn't sit right with you. You know that something's wrong.
Now, you have no doubt that Wade is a heterosexual, correct?
Absolutely.
100%.
100%.
And you would know if he was not.
Yes, 100%.
Right, so he's 100% heterosexual in your mind. You never got any sense he was bisexual, did you?
No.
And you assumed that he was a virgin when you had sex, but you no longer believe that? Where do you stand?
No, that's correct. So, like I said, I had been questioning him about this. Our relationship turned into a sexual relationship, like I said, around the age of 18, just before 18. And the suspicion started to grow even more. I could just tell things are not right with him. We should be growing even further, and right now we're kind of pulling apart, and I didn't understand why. So I started questioning him some more, specifically at this point with Brittany, because his behavior was becoming significantly different with her.
Brittany Spears.
Correct, Brittany Spears.
And again, this is when you're both about 18 years old.
Yeah.
Or maybe before then.
It is when I started questioning, yeah.
Okay, so you now believe that he was having an affair with Britney Spears before you guys became sexual, or somewhere in that range?
In that time, yeah, in that range. I know that he was pursuing her. And so that's what I, in hindsight, when you start to put it all together, he had been pursuing her, but he was positioning himself more so. I honestly believe he was positioning himself to just become part of that project. And as Justin, my understanding is Justin brought Wade
Justin Timberlake.
Exactly. Brought Wade onto the project to do production, not just choreography, but to do production now. And then that's when Brittany and Wade really got closer and began sleeping with each other.
And what are you basing that on? It's been rumored quite a bit, but I mean, do you have anything other than women's intuition, or what are you basing that on?
So, there's somebody, we have a mutual contact that's very close to both of us. Not just it's not just somebody that we both
mutual know. Contact between you and Brittany,
between Wade and I.
Okay.
Yeah, and when this came out in the media with him and Brittany, with Wade and Brittany, I questioned Wade again. At this point, I was adamant. This has to be true. Look at this. He said, Brandi, I swear to you, this is not true. Then I got a call from our mutual friend, somebody that's very close to me and very close to him. And they didn't know that I had already been questioning this. And they told me, Brandi, I have to tell you, Wade is sleeping with Brittany. He's sleeping with this person's wife. He's sleeping with this underage girl.
By the way, when you say this person's wife, it's a famous person.
If there's a famous person.
Very famous person's
absolutely.
Wife. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got the rundown. And I knew this person is extremely credible, and I knew that they weren't lying to me. So I immediately called Wade, and I confronted him on all of these things. And he just kind of paused and started crying, asking me, how do I know this? Who told me this? How could I possibly know these things?
He didn't actually deny it.
He never denied it because he knew I knew at this point. When I was able to give all of the names, he knew that I had gotten my facts, and I knew for it.
Now, was that the end of your romantic relationship?
100%. That was the end of our everything. I couldn't be friends with him at this point.
Okay, so just so
approximately 2000 or 2001.
So you're about 19 years old at this point?
19, 20.
Okay,
yeah.
So you had a quote-unquote sexual relationship with him for about a year or two?
Exactly.
Before it blows apart over Britney Spears and some other
absolutely
infidelity. Okay.
And I do want to stress, this wasn't one of those situations where... And I'm just going to try to be appropriate when I say this. We didn't have actual intercourse until I was about 18, but there were other...
Sure.
You know what I mean? I just have to be... I don't want to make it sound like...
No. I mean, that was natural. I mean, that's every teenager does that. I mean,
right.
So it was a sexual relationship. It just wasn't intercourse.
Correct.
But that's important because let's go back for a second because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take Wade's story. I'm trying to understand, okay... If he's telling the truth about Michael Jackson having abused him from the age of 7 to 14, let's go through this. And obviously no one knows for sure how a victim of that kind of sexual abuse would react. That's really horrendous sexual abuse. This is not a one-off where it happened one time, he says, get off of me, and it may not leave a lasting, huge impact. This is his... At 7 years old, this is how he's learning what sex is. It doesn't strike me at all that, based upon your experience with him, that he is dysfunctional in the way that he views sex or the way that he believes, or the evolution of your relationship. The evolution of your relationship sounds perfectly normal and innocent when you would think, wouldn't you, that if he's learning what sex is from a man at the age of 7, that everything would be off, everything would be distorted, that he would, for instance, think it was very weird to wait 6 years to have sex with his girlfriend when Michael and he had sex right off the bat.
Exactly. And his story is that Michael told him this is what people who love each other do. So I would imagine, like you, that he would that would carry over into our relationship since we loved each other.
You did love him.
Absolutely.
And he loved you.
Absolutely.
And more than just like puppy love. I mean,
we were very, very close. Loved each other as friends and loved each other as I can't say soulmates because that's something that's exaggerated, but in a relationship, the way that two would love each other.
So just to be clear, you agree then with my confusion over your experience with him sexually not being compatible with what you would think would be the case given his story about Michael?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I have a hard time with digesting when I watch the documentary, the film.
And tell me more about why you have a hard time digesting that.
It doesn't, from what I know of Wade and how I've known him to grow up, there was no indication that he had any type of, I'm going to say, sexual encounter of that nature, abuse of that nature. And when he started to change and do things that weren't right, or to have different feelings, I was able to pick up on that immediately.
So you had the type of relationship where he would have told let's pretend for a second he didn't want to obviously rat out your uncle to you, but you think you would have picked up on something like this.
100%.
You guys you talked about intimate things.
Yes.
I mean, and yet he never gave any indication.
Nothing whatsoever.
Nothing. And one of the things that I have been told, I'm not a victim of sex abuse myself, but I've studied it a lot, and one of the things I've been told is, especially when a male is abused by a man, and he's especially if he's heterosexual, and especially if it's at a young age, and especially if it's as comprehensive as he's alleging it is with Michael, that has a profound impact on a man's psyche, his confidence, especially his sexual confidence. And when I look at the way you're describing him, he seems perfectly normal with you, and let's be clear, to break up Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake at the height of Britney's celebrity and sexuality, that takes a lot of confidence.
He has a lot of confidence, for sure. Wade is extremely confident, and he has always been extremely confident. He's got this self-awareness and almost an egocentric sort of way. Narcissistic sort of way. There's nothing that if he wants something, he's going to go after it, and he's going to get it. He's never had any setbacks or any type of insecurities that would prevent him from being whatever it is that he wants.
So you have no doubt in your own mind that he was not sexually abused by your uncle?
I have no doubt. There's not even a question in my mind that he was sexually abused.
That he was not. That he was not.
Yeah, exactly. There's no doubt in my mind that he. This sentence is weird.
Do you believe that he was sexually abused by Michael Jackson?
Absolutely not. He was not sexually abused by my uncle.
And how sure are you of that?
100%.
And why? On what do you base that?
I base it, one, on my uncle. I know my uncle very, very well. I know that he would never do the things that Wade is claiming. And two, I know Wade. I know him and I know his behavior. I knew him in the midst of all of this. I do know that Wade is a liar and he's a manipulator, but he was not abused. His behavior has never indicated anything of the sort. And that's also why his mother and his family, nobody ever suspected anything, and they were always fine with allowing him to be around Michael. They were there too. There was nothing inappropriate happening to make anybody feel uncomfortable.